It was a warm Saturday morning at Maple Grove Market, a popular community gathering spot known for its vibrant mix of street vendors, families, and lively atmosphere. Among the bustling crowd, a small stand stood out, not for its grandeur, but for its charm. A 9-year-old black girl named Amaya Parker had set up her modest hot dog stand near the park's entrance, her wide smile and enthusiastic calls to passersby catching the attention of many. Amaya had started her hot dog stand to save up for a blue bicycle she'd been eyeing for months. Every penny she earned was a step closer to her dream. Her mother, Tasha Parker, had been hesitant at first, worried her daughter might face challenges in the public space. But Amaya's determination won her over, and she helped Amaya prepare the stand, teaching her to grill and organize her supplies neatly. From her spot at a nearby bench, Tasha watched proudly. Amaya handled herself with surprising maturity, counting change carefully and chatting politely with customers. Tasha had instilled in her the values of hard work and resilience, and today was proof her lessons were taking root. But not everyone saw Amaya's efforts through the same lens. At the far end of the park, Karen Wilkins, a middle-aged white woman with a rigid sense of order, stood clutching the leash of her small dog. Max. Karen had moved to Maple Grove 2 years ago, seeking the tranquility of suburban life. To her, the market represented everything she cherished: structure, tradition, and community standards. Karen's gaze fell on Amaya's stand, and her lips tightened into a thin line. The sight of the young girl selling hot dogs struck her as out of place. "This isn't some street carnival," she muttered under her breath. The longer she watched, the more irritated she became. "There are rules for a reason." Karen's irritation simmered as she saw a steady stream of customers approach Amaya. Each transaction felt like an affront to the order she believed she was upholding. Karen was formulating a plan. She wasn't going to stand idly by and let this child break the rules. She was convinced she was in the right, that her intervention would restore order and teach the girl an important lesson. What Karen didn't realize, however, was that she was about to become the lesson instead. Before we dive deeper in our store, let us know from where you're listening to us. Karen's frustration hit its peak when a group of teenagers approached Amaya's stand, laughing and taking selfies as they ordered several hot dogs. The scene, so lively and joyful, only deepened Karen's sense of offense. To her, it was chaos masquerading as entrepreneurship, and she was determined to restore order. Karen marched toward the stand, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. Max yapped at her side, sensing her agitation. Heads turned as Karen approached, her stiff posture and stern expression drawing attention. She loomed over Amaya, who was busy serving a customer and didn't notice Karen's arrival until her shadow fell across the small table. "Excuse me," Karen snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through the hum of the market. Amaya looked up, startled by the sudden interruption. "Do you have a permit to sell food here?" The question hit Amaya like a gust of cold wind. She blinked up at Karen, her smile faltering. "No, ma'am," she said timidly, her hands clutching the edge of the table. "But my mom said it's okay as long as I keep everything clean and don't bother anyone." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes narrowing. She gestured broadly at the stand, her voice dripping with disdain. "Well, your mom is wrong. This is illegal. You can't just set up shop wherever you want and make a mess of things." Amaya's face fell, her confidence crumbling under Karen's harsh words. She glanced nervously at her stand, which was meticulously organized. The napkins were neatly stacked, the trash bin was tucked under the table, and the tablecloth was spotless. "I'm not making a mess," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I'm just selling hot dogs." Karen wasn't listening. Her irritation had already turned to indignation, and in her mind, she was the only one capable of addressing this problem. "This is unacceptable," Karen declared. "You're ruining the market for everyone else." She reached out suddenly, her hand grabbing the tray of hot dogs. With a swift motion, she flipped it over, sending the neatly prepared food tumbling to the ground. The hot dogs rolled across the pavement, some landing in the dirt, others scattering near the feet of onlookers. "Stop!" Amaya cried, her voice cracking with emotion. She dropped to her knees, tears welling in her eyes as she scrambled to pick up the fallen food. Her small hands trembled as she tried to salvage what she could. Karen crossed her arms, her expression stern and unyielding. "You need to pack this up and leave," she said, her tone final. "I'm calling the police." Amaya looked up at Karen, her tear-streaked face a mix of fear and confusion. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't do anything wrong." Karen ignored her, pulling out her phone with a flourish. "Yes, I'd like to report an illegal food vendor," she said, her voice loud and authoritative as she spoke to the dispatcher. "She's making a mess and causing a disturbance at Maple Grove Market." The confrontation had drawn a crowd, and whispers rippled through the onlookers. People exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from disbelief to disapproval. Some reached for their phones, recording the scene as Karen continued her call, her words growing louder and more dramatic. "She's just a kid," someone murmured, shaking their head. "Did she really just knock over the hot dogs?" another person asked, their tone incredulous. A young man stepped forward, holding up his phone to capture the interaction. "Hey, lady," he called out, his voice steady but edged with anger. "We all saw what you did. You're the one making a mess, not her." Karen glared at him, her grip tightening on her phone. "Stay out of this," she snapped. "This has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with us," the man shot back. "You're bullying a little girl for no reason. What's wrong with you?" Other voices joined in, some calling out Karen's behavior, others encouraging Amaya. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, their frustration palpable. Amaya's mother, Tasha, pushed her way through the throng, her face a mixture of concern and anger. "What's going on here?" Tasha demanded as she reached Amaya's side. She knelt beside her daughter, wrapping an arm around her and helping her pick up the scattered food. Karen turned her icy glare on Tasha. "Your daughter is selling food illegally," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "She's making a mess and disrupting the market." Tasha straightened, her expression calm but firm. "My daughter isn't disrupting anything," she said, her voice steady. "She's been here all morning, keeping her area clean and being respectful to everyone." "She doesn't have a permit," Karen retorted, her face reddening. "That's against the rules." Tasha looked around, gesturing to the crowd. "Do you see anyone else complaining? Because from where I'm standing, the only one causing trouble is you." The crowd murmured in agreement, several people nodding and speaking up in support of Amaya. Karen's face flushed as she realized the tide was turning against her. Still, she refused to back down. "I've already called the police," she said, her voice rising. "They'll handle this." The sound of distant sirens cut through the tension, growing louder as a patrol car approached. The crowd parted, their murmurs falling silent as the vehicle pulled up near the market entrance. Two officers stepped out, their expressions calm but serious as they assessed the scene. Karen stood tall, clutching Max's leash and gesturing dramatically toward Amaya. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," she called out. "This girl has been selling food without a permit, and she's making a mess of the market. It's a complete disaster." The officers exchanged a glance before approaching the stand. One of them, Officer Hernandez, gestured for Karen to step back. "Ma'am, we'll take it from here," he said firmly. The second officer, Collins, crouched beside Amaya and Tasha, her tone gentle. "Hi there," she said. "Can you tell us what happened?" Amaya sniffled, clutching the empty tray. "I was just selling hot dogs," she said quietly. "Then she came and she knocked everything over." Hernandez turned to the crowd, his voice loud and clear. "Did anyone see what happened?" A chorus of voices answered, and several people held up their phones, offering to show the officers their recordings. Hernandez reviewed the footage, his expression growing more serious with each passing second. Collins straightened, her gaze fixed on Karen. "Ma'am," she said, her tone firm, "it's clear from the evidence and witness statements that this young girl was not causing any trouble. In fact, it appears you're the one who disrupted her stand." Karen's face turned bright red, her mouth opening and closing as she searched for a response. "I was just trying to enforce the rules," she sputtered. "She doesn't have a permit." Collins crossed her arms. "Selling hot dogs in a public market isn't illegal," she said. "What is illegal is making a false report to the police." This kind of behavior wastes resources and causes unnecessary harm. The crowd murmured in approval, their frustration with Karen evident. She glanced around, realizing that no one was on her side. The weight of their judgment pressed down on her, leaving her flustered and speechless. The tension hung thick in the air as Officer Hernandez addressed Karen, his voice steady but firm. "Ma'am, based on the evidence we've reviewed and the witness statements, you not only disrupted this young girl's stand but made a call to the police under false pretenses. Do you understand the gravity of that?" Karen's confidence cracked visibly. She clutched Max's leash tighter, her knuckles turning white. "I wasn't trying to cause trouble," she stammered. "I was just trying to maintain order." "Order?" Officer Collins interjected, raising an eyebrow. "You flipped over a child's food tray and accused her of making a mess when she wasn't doing anything wrong. That's not maintaining order. It's harassment." The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, their frustration with Karen palpable. Some people shook their heads in disbelief, while others openly voiced their disapproval. "She owes that little girl an apology," someone shouted. "Can't believe someone would pick on a kid like that," another muttered. Karen glanced nervously at the officers, then at the crowd, her face a deep shade of red. Her usual self-assured demeanor was crumbling under the weight of public scrutiny. Officer Hernandez took a step closer, his tone measured but firm. "Ma'am, making a false report to the police is a serious matter. Do you understand that your actions could have escalated this situation unnecessarily? You disrupted a peaceful market, caused distress to a child, and wasted police resources." Karen's lips parted as if to argue, but the words faltered. Her gaze dropped to the ground as the reality of her actions began to sink in. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she mumbled. Officer Collins turned her attention to Amaya, who was still clutching the empty tray, her mother standing protectively by her side. "Amaya," she said gently, crouching to meet the girl's eyes, "I'm so sorry this happened to you. You've done nothing wrong, and we're proud of how strong you've been." Amaya sniffled, a small smile breaking through her tears. "Thank you," she said softly. Collins stood and addressed the crowd. "We appreciate everyone's cooperation. If you have videos of the incident, we ask that you share them with the station as evidence. This young girl has every right to be here, and we encourage the community to continue supporting her." The crowd erupted into applause, the sound echoing through the market. Karen shrank back, the weight of their disapproval pressing down on her. For the first time, she truly understood how wrong she had been. By the time Karen returned home, the fallout from the incident was already spreading. Videos of the confrontation had been uploaded to social media, and within hours, hashtags like #HotDogHero and #KarenInTheMarket were trending. The clips showed Karen flipping the tray of hot dogs, berating Amaya, and being confronted by the police. Her face and actions were unmistakable, and the internet was unforgiving. Comment sections lit up with outrage. This woman really thought she was the law. Glad the cops put her in her place. Imagine picking on a 9-year-old. The audacity. Memes mocking Karen's behavior spread like wildfire. One popular meme featured her pointing angrily at Amaya's stand with the caption, "Protecting the world from hot dogs, one tantrum at a time." Another showed Amaya smiling with a tray of hot dogs, accompanied by the words, "The real hero we need." Local news stations picked up the story, airing interviews with witnesses who praised Amaya's resilience and condemned Karen's actions. "She's just a kid trying to work toward her dreams," one man said in an interview. "What kind of person tears that down?" Karen's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Messages from acquaintances ranged from bewildered to outright angry. Her social media accounts were flooded with critical comments, and she quickly deactivated them to escape the onslaught. Meanwhile, Amaya's story garnered overwhelming support. Donations poured in to help her achieve her dream of buying a new bike, with many people leaving encouraging messages. "Keep shining, Amaya," one donor wrote. "You're an inspiration." Tasha, moved by the outpouring of kindness, shared a heartfelt post thanking the community for standing by her daughter. "Amaya's strength comes from the love and support she receives," Tasha wrote. "This experience, though painful, has shown us how much good there is in the world." For Karen, The backlash was swift and unrelenting. Everywhere she turned, she felt the weight of judgment. Even her neighbors, people she had known for years, avoided her, their expressions cold when they crossed paths. At first, Karen wallowed in self-pity, blaming the crowd, the officers, and even Amaya for what had happened. But as the days passed, and she rewatched the videos that had gone viral, a different emotion began to take hold: shame. She saw herself as the world saw her, a woman driven by prejudice and self-righteousness, attacking a child for no reason. Her own voice, shrill and accusatory, made her cringe. The image of Amaya's tearful face haunted her, and the words of the officers replayed in her mind. "You disrupted a peaceful market, caused distress to a child, and wasted police resources." Karen realized she had acted out of a misguided sense of authority, fueled by assumptions and biases she had never questioned. The thought of how she had hurt Amaya filled her with regret. Determined to make amends, Karen reached out to a local community leader, explaining her desire to apologize and learn from her mistakes. Though skeptical, the leader agreed to help facilitate a meeting with Amaya and her mother. A week later, Karen found herself standing outside a community center, clutching a bouquet of flowers and a handwritten card. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart raced as she prepared to face Amaya and Tasha. Inside the center, Amaya sat beside her mother, her posture calm but wary. When Karen entered, the room fell silent. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Amaya," Karen began, her gaze fixed on the young girl, "I want to apologize for what I did to you. I was wrong to judge you and act the way I did. I let my own biases cloud my judgment, and I hurt you because of it. I'm so sorry." Amaya looked up at Karen, her big brown eyes filled with curiosity and caution. "Why did you do it?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. Karen swallowed hard. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she admitted, "but I see now that I wasn't. I didn't take the time to understand you, and I acted out of ignorance." Amaya studied Karen for a moment before nodding. "I forgive you," she said simply, "but next time, try to think about how someone else might feel before you do something." Karen's eyes welled with tears at the girl's grace. "Thank you," she said, her voice cracking. "I promise I'll do better." The meeting marked the beginning of Karen's transformation. She began attending workshops on implicit bias and empathy, volunteering at local events, and engaging in conversations with people from diverse backgrounds. Though the road to redemption was long, Karen was determined to change. Amaya, buoyed by the community's support, bought her dream bike and donated part of her earnings to a local charity supporting young entrepreneurs. Her story became a symbol of resilience and grace, inspiring others to stand up against injustice. For the entire community, the incident at Maple Grove Market served as a powerful reminder of the importance of empathy and understanding. And for Karen, it was a humbling experience that taught her the value of reflection and growth. Karen revisited the park weeks later, passing the spot where Amaya's stand had been. She smiled, remembering the young girl's words, "Try to think about how someone else might feel." Karen had learned that lesson the hard way, but she was determined to carry it forward. Amaya's forgiveness had given her a second chance, and she was committed to using it wisely.